does better that way, right? So that's a better way to go about it. Hopefully everybody's doing that now. Some of the things that come up, and maybe y'all will get my back on this, is that the insurance companies will come back and tell you that, well, your body tech's doing that job, that radiator, so I'm not going to pay mechanical on that. Or have you had where your body tech is putting suspension pieces on that they don't want to pay mechanical because it's the body tech doing it? No? So that's not happening? Okay, good. Because that's happening in some areas, right? And the rebuttal back to that is it's kind of like judgment time, right? The average time it takes an average tech to do an average job. Well, the same thing comes in. If you have that fight, the thing comes back to this, is you need to inform your insurance people that you've got a lot of money invested in training, equipment. Your technician has a lot of money invested in your mechanic and his tools that he has to do these mechanical operations. And that is why we charge what we charge. Again, if you had me doing the suspension work, A, the car would leave not right, and B, it would take me 10 times as long as it would take your mechanic to do it, right? So the other thing too, and this may have come up, is, hey, if they don't want to pay your rates, and it doesn't sound like we're having that problem here, but that's great, but if they don't want to pay your rates, ask them if they want to pay the sublet markup when you send them to the dealer and knock their head off for whatever that part is, right? And that works sometimes, So I still have shops do that. So again, if you have to negotiate the rate, or let them know about the training and your equipment and all the money that you have involved in your shop from tools and training and all those type of things, right? That in itself probably won't win the day, but it's a good place to start the conversation, right? Jig rental, they should be paying for jig rental for sure.
As they say, that's just cost of doing business.
That's wrong. Here's the thing, here's what I would tell them. You guys can decide, I can't make business decisions for people, but here's what I'm going to tell you on that whole deal. I feel the same way about colors. I feel the same way about just about anything that comes to a car, right? Because on to your point, when we're talking about paint material profitability, it's absolutely asinine that we charge a company, an insurance company, the same exact money to paint the side on a white Camry as we do to paint the side of a red Camry. Would you not agree with that? Is your toner the same money that comes in, white and red? I can tell you they're not. Matter of fact, there's a huge difference in price. Both two-stage or whatever, right? But you charge them the same amount of money because we got this crazy-ass mathematical bullshit system that we use, right? The reality of it is the way insurance works, just so you know, is the insurance company decided to insure Luis's red Ferrari. Didn't call Greg and ask me if they should insure it. They decided they wanted to insure that Ferrari. That Ferrari has a red toner in it that's expensive, and or it has a jig that I have to buy to be able to set it on my select bench or whatever it is. You chose to insure the car. This is what the car needs to put it back to pre-reg. It's not a cost of doing business. If it was a cost of doing business, then you'd have to use that jig on every single car. Wouldn't you agree? I mean, I realize they're going to push back on you, but that's one way to push back. They insured the car. Again, do you understand what I'm saying? You can make the same argument for paint. Matter of fact, I could make an argument to everybody in here that you should be invoicing them on every single paint material invoice that you do. Because technically on paper, they owe for the white paint or the red paint or the green paint. It just depends on what they did. They insured the car. The car was red when they bought it. You see what I mean? Just like the Mercedes, they chose to insure the Mercedes. Mercedes requires that you have to get these jigs to set the car up on a machine. That's not a cost of doing business. And by the way, those jigs are expensive to rent, right? How much were they? They're a lot. I mean, they're hundreds of dollars. It's not like it's $50, right? Has anybody ever had to rent those out on a select bench? It's home Pleasant Grove. Is that where you used it?
No, I ended up subbing.
You subbed it out because they didn't want to pay for it. Right.
Which,
and then you marked it up, so everything came out in the
only got
wash.
25%.
Right. Which isn't as good as what it would have been if you just got to fix the car in the shop, right? Look, I mean, and I don't know that that's going to fix that problem, but I think it's a valid debate or start of a negotiation, right? And you'll throw them off when you say that to them, right? They insured the car. They chose to insure that car. This is what the car needs to put it back to pre-rec. How is that part of a cost of doing business?
I think another example would be that everyone knows about that high-end YF Freon.
Right?
The
Yeah.
dealerships, for everyone knows, they charge like what, $600 or something?
Yep.
700 for the type pound for a couple ounces of Freon, and they charge X. What is it, like how much per ounce?
Right. I don't know. It's
13,
tons.
$15 an ounce or something. And,
They're paying $2.95 to recharge.
and then I got the machine and I conduct the work, and they give me a hard time about paying. And I'm okay, well, that's fine, no problem. I send it out to the dealership and they get mad.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, what did you do this?
What do you want me to do, right? I mean, some of this stuff, I realize we've got
I
to
just
really...
did prove a point to them.
Yeah, and sometimes that's what you got to do,
And
right?
they gave me a hard time about that too.
Yeah, but man, you got to stand your ground on something like that, right? You cannot afford to give away that kind of work.
Yeah.
You know?
And second time around.
For that kind of money.
They already.
Yeah. So I don't think there's a silver bullet or magic bean I can hand you for the ignorant crap that insurance companies say to you. But I think that, you know, having a rebuttal like on the jigs, and I don't know if that's a good enough one for you or not, makes sense. Again, I think you could start invoicing on every single car that comes into your shop when you paint it and say, I have changed the policy at my shop. I am now going to invoice you on every car that I paint, and here's why I'm going to do it. Because every car, there's a different cost of the paint when I paint it. So why should the sale be the same, right? Doesn't make sense. Again, Mr. Insurance Guy, not you, but someone above you at your parent company decided to insure this car for X amount of dollars, which by the way, they charge people who own a red car more than they charge people who own a white car, just so you know. So there's all kinds of things they think about when they're selling insurance to them. So on this paint thing, why in God's name would we accept the same exact amount of money on every color across the board? Because we've been indoctrinated to do it, right? We've let it happen. But technically, if you wanted to push back and fight, you could start giving them an invoice on every single car that they do, and technically on paper in the state of Texas, they owe you for that. That is actually a breach of their insurance policy with their client. Again, I know it's easy to talk about, it's much more of an ass whip to take people to small claims court over and over again, or to get your client involved. I'm just saying, if all of a sudden you started invoicing people for color, your argument back to them is pretty hard to debate. I'm not trying to be an asshole, Mr. Insurance Guy. I'm just trying to get you to pay to put this red car that Mrs. Jones insured with you back to pre-rec. And this is what it's going to cost on that car.
I've got an insurance company just flat out tell me they don't match labor rates, period. I couldn't even get the daily rate, much less my posted rate.
Yeah.
Just
You guys
flat
should
out.
start recording these
No.
people. I'm telling you right now, you really should, because they say all kinds of things that in the court of law, they'd be done.
That's an email.
Yeah. Oh, you should keep that, dude. Keep that. Because I've got shops taking to small claims
Do
court.
you have
now.
any shops that are doing the invoicing on all the material?
I have one, well, he's not a client anymore. I have a shop in Plano where I live that's part of the Asbury group that did that. And just to keep this like in perspective, he's a heavy DRP shop. He did not invoice on every single car. He invoiced on every non-DRP.
What did he have an average on what he was getting back?
He moved, what I can tell you is that, but here's why it started, is because Asbury, you know who they are. They were comparing themselves against themselves, right? So they've got these 6 body shops, and this poor guy out in Plano had the crappiest shop with the crappiest booths. And was getting compared to a guy that had a brand new, built from the ground up shop, and he was losing his ass. I mean, these booths were so bad at this store, when you turn them on, the doors would blow open, you know, because of the airflow inside them, right? And so there's no way, they were redoing cars, there's no way in hell he was going to keep up with the other ones. So he started doing that on just about 50% of his business, because he was about 50% DRP. What I can tell you is I watched him move his gross profit 10 points in 30 days, which is a lot, by the way. So some pushed back, but I'll tell you, I wish I could get him on the phone right now. The funny thing, his feedback to me was this, is that, Greg, I got very little pushback on invoicing for material. like hardly in it all. Yeah, he's like, I started invoicing on every non-DRP. He goes, I'm telling you, 85–90% of the adjusters just wanted the invoice to put in the folder, so when they got asked why they adjusted it, they could defend themselves. So I'm not telling you what to do, because that would be colluding. What I am telling you is there's a lot of money left on the table there, and there's also a very good debate to be had on why I would want to invoice. Because again, my scenario I just gave you, they can look at you and say, well, I'm not doing it because, right? But it's pretty hard to debate the little scenario I just laid out, right? Pretty hard for them to debate it, because it's the truth. So it's something to think about, right? But back to your original question, I would have done exactly the same thing you did. If they were unwilling to pay and I couldn't get them to, and I couldn't talk them into it, I'd sub the damn thing out and I'd have knocked their head off on the sublet. You know, that's all you can really do. I would think it's your customer involved and all those kind of things, which just depends on the scenario you have going on, right? Yeah, so all of that, things that we need to bill for, by the way, if you're doing this work in-house, just make sure you look in the P pages and or in the OEM procedures. If you're going to do your suspension, just remember there are operations that are not included in that, right? So if you're putting a strut on, the compressing of the strut is not part of the labor time. Look in your P pages, it's not. There's money left there. If you're compressing, if you've spent the money on the machine to compress the strut, there's a cost there. You need to get your money back, right? Actually, you need to turn it into a profit center because it's an investment that you make, right? Any kind of components we got to take off, right, to gain access. We should have mechanical rate on that. And obviously the four-wheel alignments. Forgotten P-page stuff. I really don't think we forget some of this stuff. Like I told you, this class is a little bit old, and that's why we're rewriting it. There was a point in time where we would overlook antifreeze when it was $10 a gallon, right? But now if you get a Toyota in that takes that red coolant or whatever, how much is that shit a gallon now? Yeah, we're probably not as apt to let that get by us. But there was a point in time where I can tell you for sure, just being honest, I get to as an estimator, I get to the end and I'd be like, oh crap, I didn't charge him for antifreeze or coolant. Well, I ain't creating a supplement for $12 for coolant. And I think if everybody's in here is honest with themselves, probably the same way, right? So there's been a lot of $12 worth of coolant or clips or whatever it is that we've all chewed on, you know, over the years. What I would say is that the fluids are getting so much more expensive now, it's a lot harder to do that. Someone brought up Freon, in the new Freon, right? Well, there was a point in time where R12 wasn't all that expensive, and I probably ate quite a bit of R12 over the years, but I can't afford this new stuff, right? So in a way, this crap getting more expensive is actually better for us, quite honestly, because now you're billing for it, right? Because you're not willing to eat a $30 gallon of coolant, right? But all these things, you know, this is all real stuff that you just need to make sure that you're charging them for. It's stuff that's not in the P-page system. When it comes to wheels and tires, are you charging them? I know it's nickel-dimey stuff, right? But all this nickel-dimey stuff adds up at the end of the year, by the way. You know, so if you've got a wheel balancing machine at the shop and you're doing that kind of work, are you charging them for the valve stem, the wheel weights, you know, all those things that you have there at the shop, right? Or do you have a magic fairy that comes to your shop and just fills up your bins for free with all the stuff that you need, wheel weights and clips and stuff? You got that, Phil?
No.
No? You don't have that magic fairy?
All that,
So-
they're gonna want an invoice for all that.
Yeah, well, and you can create one. You know, there's ways to. I don't know who you use for your nuts, bolts, and clips, but most nuts, bolts, and clips companies have an invoicing tool that they can provide to you.
$26 a year from Crest.
From Crest, they charge you for their invoicing tool?
Yeah.
Really?
126.
You think they give that to you for free?
Well, if you could bill 20, so it pays yourself for 5 estimates, and then how much, because you're billing 20 on every estimate, but
Sure.
the adjusters are giving you $10 anyway.
Well, I know that Kent and Worth and some of the other big vendors out there, they all have invoicing tools out there. 3M, by the way, has a phenomenal invoicing tool. Does anybody in here use 3M?
Correct.
Yeah, yeah, the online version that they just went live with? Yes. Have you used it?
I've used it
Yeah.
before.
It works well. It works
We're
real
not
well.
having an account.
You just gotta buy their product. If you use 3M products, it's free. Yeah, they don't charge you for the, that's why I laughed when you said they charge you for the invoicing tool, because I don't know any of the other ones that do. Worth gives it for free, Kent gives it for free, they all give it to you for free, because they want you to invoice.
We give it for free for the paint too.
That's true. Yeah, I can give you an invoicing.
And if anyone wants to use that invoice tool, the one on the paint side, just call me or let our distributor know. We can go
Yeah,
over a
we've
little
got-
session on
We've
it.
got a pool, like, to his point, for material invoicing, I mean,
Material calculator.
yeah, we've got a material calculator we can give you for nothing, right? And it's like, it takes, all you gotta do is just customize it to your shop, put your own address in there one time, save it. And literally, you put how many refinished labor hours you have and what your paint material and order rate is, and poof, you have an invoice.
And
So-
more so will you use it today is because of the fact that the 2018 colors, 17s, there's more complicated colors now. They have Cyrillic, they have 3-stage, 4-stage, so you need to keep an eye, like he said, reds, 46V on the Mazda, RR.